Hello Year 9 and welcome to your home learning today. Today's lesson we are looking at reducing the gap in development. For this lesson the learning objectives are first of all understand what we mean by reducing the gap in development. And looking at why it needs to happen. We're then going to look at explaining the methods that we use to reduce that development gap. And then finally we're going to evaluate the best or the most successful method, which one's the best method to reduce this gap. In the bottom left hand corner you can see that you've got the equipment that you need for this lesson, so just have a quick read through that so you know what you need. You then in the right hand corner have your know your level, and it links to your MG, so it tells you which tasks you should be doing for each part of the lesson. So just have a quick read through that before you start the lesson. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is what is a development gap? What does that mean? Okay, so got a couple of images on the board there. Just want you to pause the video now and just have a quick think about what you think the term development gap means. So just pause the video now while you have a think about that. Okay, now you've had a little think about what you think the development gap is. Okay, just going to put the definition up there for you to read. Okay, so again, I'm just going to ask you to pause the video and read that definition for development gap and what that means. Okay. Okay, moving on to our first task then, we're going to look at what the development gap is and why it needs to change. So, what I would like you to do first of all is, can you draw around your hand on a piece of paper? Okay, so just draw around your hand on a piece of paper, just like the example that you've got on the slide here. Just pause the video while you do that. Okay, so now that you've drawn your hand on a piece of paper, you're going to watch a video which you will find on class charts, which tells you about the development gap. Now, while you watch that video, you're going to do the following. Okay, so in the thumb, I want you to write one piece of evidence that the development gap exists. So that proves that there's a gap in development between different countries. I then want you to do in two of your fingers, two pieces of evidence that show that it's not that bad. So that actual gap between development of countries isn't as bad as you may think it is. You're then going to do in one of your fingers, one fact you find interesting. So you're going to see loads of facts and figures, one that you find interesting. And then finally, one way that we could solve this gap in development. So how can we reduce the gap between the countries? For a mastered task then, in the palm of your hand, think of any reasons that Hans Rosling data may not be valid. So the data that you see in the video, why might it not be valid? Why it might not be true? Why it might not be accurate as well? So you need to pause the video now, and then you need to watch the video that's on class charts and fill in the information from these pieces of information I've put on the slide here. Okay, so just pause the video now, go over to class charts, open up the video so that you can answer the questions that are in front of you. Thank you. So this brings us nicely onto our second learning objective, is looking at ways that we can reduce that gap in development. Now, before we do that, we need to look at the ways that we can reduce the gap in development. Now, you've got bottom-up development versus top-down development. And on this slide, you can see in the blue boxes, you've got two definitions. Now, what I want you to do is read through those two definitions, and I want you to think about which one is bottom-up and which one is top down. So just pause the video now, read the two definitions, and can you think about which one links to bottom up development and which one links to top down development? Okay, so you've read through your information and you've had a think about it. You should have been able to decipher which one was bottom up and which one was top down. So I'm just going to put on the slide now which is which. So the first one then is your top down, and that's when large scale projects carried out by governments and big companies known as TNCs, and these TNCs are big companies, okay, that have operations in more than one country. So they have factories in more than one country, and it is thought that these projects create jobs and the benefits will trickle down into local projects. So an example of that would be your year 8 topic when you learn about iPhones in China. Okay, when you learn about iPhones in China, the fact that Apple uses factories in China to produce their iPhones is a top top-down development strategy, because they've created jobs in China, which then has made them more developed, because there's more people with jobs which are making money. Okay, now your second one then is your top up, and that's when local people are invested into. They're given technology so that they can farm. They're given water wells, education so that they can make and sell crops, and this allows the local people to earn money and then spend the money that they earn to grow the economy within that country. So if you've seen those Oxfam adverts where they're talking about give a man a fish he can eat for one day, whereas if you give a man the tools and the education how to fish, he can feed himself for a long period of time. This is that idea. So we're giving them the opportunity to learn a method of farming so that they can grow and sell their own crops and they can make their own money that way. Okay, so these are both bottom up and top down strategies for reducing the gap in development. Okay, so what I want you to do then is, can you draw two images to represent bottom up and top down development? For mastered, which one do you think is the useful methods for an LIC country, so that's a low income country, and why do you think that? Think about sustainability. Remember, sustainability just means something that's good for now, so it'll work now, but it'll also work in the future, so it still make the money in the future as well as making money now. Okay, so just pause the video now while you complete those two images related to bottom up and top down. So that brings us on nicely to our ways that we can reduce that gap in development. And these link to our strategies of top up and bottom down. Now the strategies we're going to look at are TNC investment, we're going to look at tourism, we're going to look at industrial development, reducing the debt, microfinance loans, and finally technology. Now, these are the 6 ways that we can reduce the gap within a country. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to go over to class charts and you have the reduce the gap worksheet. You're going to use that reduce the gap worksheet and the resource packs which are on there to help you fill in the information to understand how each one of these strategies works to reduce the gap in development within different countries. So for the developing, you need to look at your reduce the gap worksheet and you just need to complete the normal questions. For secured, there are questions in bold and you need to complete them to complete the secured task. And then for mastered, you've got the exam question at the bottom here, which is, to what extent is a TNC investment the best method to reduce the gap in an LIC? And that's a 6-mark question, so you're going to do one pedal paragraph, but you're also going to include however, so you're going to evaluate your points. So TNCs is the best way to reduce the development gap because explain why it reduces the gap. This means that, so what does it mean for that country and how does it help them develop? This links to, and that's where you can either link it to SEEP or you can say what it leads to in the future. And then finally, however, a better way or another way to reduce the gap is this, and explain why that may be a better strategy, and that would be your 6-mark question. Okay, so you need to go over to class charts, open up the resource pack and the reduce the gap worksheet, and you just need to, for developing, you need to complete the normal questions. For secured, complete the normal questions and the questions in bold, and then mastered, you can have a go at completing the 6-mark exam question on this slide. So just pause the video now and go over to class charts. So now that we know the strategies and the methods to reduce the gap in development, we need to look at the best method for different countries. So development is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So not every country will use tourism to develop. Not every country will have TNC investment. They all use different methods, and there's a reason for that. So, for example, a country like Tanzania, which has a GNI per person, which is your average wage, of about $2,054, do they need the same type of reduce the gap development methods as the Dominican Republic of Congo, which makes around $753 per person? So there's quite a big difference in the amount of money that is made in these two countries. Would they both use the same method to improve their development and reduce that development gap? And that's what we're going to look at now. So you're going to be given and they're on the slide here. You're going to be given 4 different characters. Now what I want you to do is, just before I explain the task, just pause the video now and read through your 4 different characters, which are you can see on the slide now. So just pause the video and read through those 4 different people. Okay, now that you've read through that information for each of the 4 different characters, I want you to pick out 2 of the characters, and for developing, I want you to explain for each character which is the best method to reduce the gap in development for that character. And you've got sentence starters there to help you. So the most effective method is this for this person. So for example, if you were talking about Julian Marder, you'd say the best method for Julian is this. I think this is the best method because, so why is it the best method for him? And then this means that, and what would it mean for the country's development? How would it help them develop? And you'd do that for, say, another character as well. So you could do it for Zola, Howard. What method would she use that's different to the method that you've used for Julius? Okay. For secured, to you, both of your sentences, can you add links to SEEP? So does it link to social, economic, or environmental or political, and why does it link to that? And then for mastered, for each of your characters, can you characters paragraph, can you explain, can you evaluate your points? So however, someone else might think this is a better method for this person because, okay? So you're doing 2 pedal paragraphs, depending on if you're doing developing, secured, and mastered, depends how much your information you're writing for your pedal paragraph for 2 different characters, okay? So just pause the video here while you complete that task. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of this lesson. Just want to go through what I'd like you to upload to ClassChart. So first of all, I'd like you to upload a picture of your handprint linked to the video at the beginning, which tells us what the development gap is and why we need to change it. And like I said, that links to our first learning objective, which is understanding what is meant by the reducing the gap in development and why it needs to happen. And then finally, I want you to upload your 2 pedal paragraphs linking to your 2 characters, explaining the most effective method for that character, and that links to the evaluating the most successful methods. Okay, so well done for completing today's lesson. Geography team are looking forward to seeing your work. Keep up the hard work, guys. See you soon.